All right, welcome back to Photoshop. Today we're going to take a look at retouching lips. And if you are interested in retouching lips so that they do not look realistic, this video is not for you. We're going to make these look better, but we're not going to make them look fake. We're just going to improve the lips. This isn't something that I find that you have to do too often in photography, but every once in a while you do need to do it, especially when you have a tight photo. So let's go ahead. We're going to break this down into just a few easy steps. This is not complicated. I will even show you in the end how to change the color a little bit if you want to alter the color of the lips. Step number one is going to be to duplicate our layer. So I'm going to hit Command or Control J and we have a new layer, and this is going to be called lips. And what we're going to do in step number one is we're going to even them out. So this point is a little bit high. We're going to push this down. And right here, it's kind of going at an angle. We're going to push this out just so it's a nicer curve. Basically what's happening right here is this is kind of exaggerated. The lips going like that. We don't want that. We want more of an angle like this. So let's go into liquify. We're going to go to filter, liquify. We're going to use the forward warp tool. When you use the forward warp tool, a lot of times it needs to be much larger than the area that you're working in. So you'll notice that my circle is much bigger. However, make sure the circle isn't over another part of the image, because when you warp it, you will see it. But in the skin here, we won't be able to tell. So what we're going to do is push this down. So I'm going to center basically my circle right over the point where I want it to come down. And I'm going to just click and drag. And that's all you need to do. Then we're going to come over here. Remember, I don't want to go over this line. So we're just going to make that as big as we can. We're going to bring that up a little bit. Click and hold. We can check here and see if that looks better. Looks like this area needs to come down just a little bit more. So we'll just bring that down a little bit more. And that looks better. I think right here it needs to come out just a little bit more. That's good enough. We can work with that. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And I'll turn this on and off so you can see what it looks like. That's all we did. Just a little bitty shift. That's it. So the next step, step number two, is going to be using the pen tool. And you'll notice that you don't see my pen tool over here because I don't use it a lot. But the pen tool is P. So pen tool pops right up. There's the pen tool. And we need to make a selection of the lips, kind of really a selection of where we want the lips to be, because we're going to either clone or remove areas so that they're more defined. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a path, and then we're going to turn that path into a selection. And we want to basically make that path where we want the lips to be. We're going to be moving and adjusting these, but this also, just like liquify, is going to help us shape the lips. And we're going to use it in a couple different steps. So you want to make sure that you do a good job. Now, if most of you are like me, I don't use the pen tool a lot as a photographer. Graphic designers and other people tend to use it a lot, but I don't make selections and cut things out. And with AI, I've gotten away from the pen tool. So it can be difficult to learn. I will do my best to explain what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. If you have trouble with the pen tool, you can make other selections with just any sort of a selection tool, or you can watch a video and try to learn how to do it. So let's go ahead and start with the pen tool. So what we're going to do is click and make a point, and then we're going to go to the top of the first curve. And so we're going to just come out here and drag this out, and I'm trying to make that fit, and that looks pretty good. Now, because we're changing direction, I'm going to hold my Option key, which is Alt on PC, and I'm going to click. So now we can go start our next point. And I will just go ahead and click there. Now, I don't want that to be like super straight because it will look weird. So we're just going to give that a little arc. Same thing here. We're going to click, 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 drag that out. And that looks even, I think. Change our direction. In this case, we're going to go all the way down to probably to the end, and we'll drag this out. To here, click, drag, click, drag. And at any time when you're doing this, you can change your points, you can alter or change things. So I'm going to hit my command key and I'm going to come and click on this list down just a little bit. And I'm going to drag this over a little bit. So that looks better. And I hit command 2. I'm going to pull this one down a little bit. That looks better. Come up here to finish that off. All right, so those are our selection of our lips. We've closed that out. Now what we've created here is what we call a path. And the cool thing about paths is you can save them and use them later. So if we do need to use them later, we're going to come up here and we're going to drop down and we're going to open up our paths window and it's going to come up right here. And to save that, you just need to give it a new name. So we'll call this lips and hit OK. So now we've got that path. Now to turn the path into a selection, you can just come down here to this little tool right there and hit load path, or you can just command or control click it and it will turn that into a selection. Now, if you command or control click that and turn it into a selection, it doesn't give you the option to feather it. The problem is this is a hard edge and it's not going to look good at this point. So you can see right here, I didn't do a great job right here. It's a little bit harsh, but we can fix that in the next step. So we'll go to select and then down to select and mask, because we do need to feather it. So you can see right now that just looks really corny and weird. So that's not something that we want to do. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and take the brush tool and fix this. So I'm going to hit minus. What I'm doing is I'm adding to that a little bit. It's hard to do, but we're going to feather it. All right, so that looks pretty good here. Right up here, I'm going to, got such a hard brush. Probably should make it a little softer, but that looks better. All right, so then we're going to come in here and we're going to feather this. And we're looking at this edge because we want this to seamlessly blend in. And this is going to be dependent on your image. So don't look at the numbers, because if you have a small image, you're going to probably have less feather. If you have a large image, you're going to have more feather. So in this case, we're just going to go until it starts to soften. You can also smooth that edge up here as well. But that looks pretty good. So we got a nice smooth edge. So it's going to blend in and look not ridiculous when we do this. So we're going to come down here and hit OK. And now I've got our selection. So what do we want to do in our selection? Well, first of all, any part of the lips that are on the outside of the selection, like you see a little bit of pink, we're going to clean that up and get rid of it. The problem is right now it is on the outside and we're only selected on the inside. So I'm going to do Command Shift I, and that is inverse. And now we're selected everywhere but the lip, so on the outside. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to call this outside lips, just so everybody knows what I'm doing. And we'll grab the clone stamp tool here. I'm going to make that a little bit smaller. So now that we've got our clone stamp, we want to make sure our opacity and flow are at 100%. And we're just going to click and we're going to go ahead and clean up these areas. So right down here, I've got this little mark still. Get rid of that. This area is a little bit dark here. I'm going to get rid of some of it, but not all of it. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger just so it's softer. And when you do that, you can see how unrealistic it makes. So what you do in that case is you lower your opacity down. I want to get rid of some of the darkness, but not all of it. So I'm just going to click and just go over it real subtly. And I'll do it on this side too. Bring this back up a little bit higher. A lot of this is subjective. It takes a while to get used to it. And that looks better. So we're cleaning all that stuff up. Now we want to go from the outside to the inside. So I'm going to do Command Shift I. And yes, I could have done this first. We're going to create a new layer. Put Retouch Lips. So this is the inside. And I will zoom in a little bit more and move this over so you can see what I'm doing. In this case, I like the healing brush for this. It picks up the texture better. It doesn't smooth it out, but we're going to get rid of all these little bumps or any other imperfection that you see. We could have also evened this out when we were in the liquify, but I really didn't notice that until now. Remember, when you're using this, you have to get a source spot. So you pick a spot and then you start going over it. Some of these are real imperfections in the face, and some of these are just where the image is showing up with a little dust speck thing that you did. And I'm constantly resourcing when I'm doing this. So when you see that pop up like a little rifle scope, that means that I'm getting a new source. And that's just something that I've learned to do over time. So we're going to move down here. And remember, if you go over one of these and it doesn't look good, don't keep going over it, undo it, and then just do it over again. You should be able to get this in one swipe. We're fixing both the color, and some of these, it's got this weird pinkish color. I'll do a decent amount here, but I don't want to go crazy because take too long. The video will be hours long. But you can see I'm just going over all these spots and cleaning up anything that I don't like. We're just trying to make it look better. We're not trying to really alter it that much. Sometimes the lipstick gets like cakey or bunches up into little balls that you need to clear that out. All right, so that looks pretty good. We're not gonna go over and get every little spot because it's gonna take me too long. Just like here, doing this type of stuff takes a long time sometimes. All right, so we've got this selection here. We've got this looking a whole lot better. The next thing is going to be dodge and burn. And you can set up an action for this. So those of you who don't know how to do actions, you can easily watch a tutorial. I've got tons of them on how to do an action. This will really save time. I'm going to do it manually just because it's going to be more helpful here. We can get rid of the selection. We don't need it. Remember, the cool thing is that's saved, that path up here. So we can get back to it if we need to. So I'm going to hit Command D to deselect that. It looks like, actually, let me hit Command Z again. So I'm going to add a little bit of color to this spot here. So I'm going to make this bigger. And I don't want to do that full. So it looks like 86%. I think I'm actually going to do it around 50. Okay. Command D to get rid of that. Now we're back to where we were. So we're going to make a curves adjustment layer for our dodging and burning. It's just the way that I like. We're going to make this the burn, and we're going to make it brighter. You can bring over some highlights if you want. I tend to not do that. And this is way too much. I understand that. We're going to lower this in the end, but you just want to make a big curve. And the good thing is, because you're making this drastic curve, you can use it over and over and over again for a whole bunch of stuff when you're using dodging and burning, because you can always just lower the layer opacity, and you'll see us do that here. You can easily make an action that makes this curve and then Command I, and we can come over here and we can call this dodge. And dodge means you're making things brighter. It has to do with the old darkroom techniques where you would dodge an area to make it lighter. All right, so right now nothing has been done to the lips because we've hidden that behind this mask. So we're going to take our brush and hit the letter D, because right now we've got weird default colors, and make our default color white. We're going to make sure that we're selected on the mask. And the reason I could tell that my mask was not selected, you see it's got the little slash with the arrow. That means I knew I couldn't use the brush there because it's not on the mask, and now it's going to let us use it. So what we need to do, and I'm actually going to make this a small brush just so you can see, and we'll make a new layer here, is we're going to lighten some areas and darken some areas. And if you don't know where to lighten and darken areas on lips, you can just go find like contouring makeup tutorials. But basically, I'm looking at the highlight here so I can kind of see what I want to do. So this area here, this maybe even a little bit more here, is going to be highlighted. This area here where it's got the highlight, we want to make sure that that's highlighted. And then we want to take this, and you don't have to do it like this, but we might draw a line like this because we want to darken this whole outer edge. And all this is doing is creating more depth. And then we can darken this area in here a little bit. Sometimes you can even kind of bring a little dark area up in here as well. So that's basically what we're going to be lightening and darkening. We're just not going to do it looking like that. So we can go ahead and trash this because we're not going to use that. Now I've got this adjustment curve. And when we do this, it's going to be way too much. So remember, your brush size is going to be important. So we want to just pick the areas that we want to brighten. And we're going to come in here and brighten those areas. You can also do this independently because a lot of times how much you're going to do on the bottom lip is completely different from how much you're going to do on the upper lip. So you might have to do this twice. All right, so that looks pretty good. So the next thing that we're going to do is the burn. The burn is to make darker. So I'm going to make a new adjustment. We're going to do the opposite where I make everything darker. I'm going to hit that Command I to invert that layer. And we're going to do the exact same thing. We're just going to come in with a brush and make this area darker. Changing that brush size. So we're going to make this area darker. And because the light's kind of coming down here, I could do a little bit less here. So I'm going to hit X and I'm going to go over that area to make it lighter. But I'm only going to go over at about 50% opacity so it doesn't totally remove it all. So we're doing more over here and less over here. All right. X again. And remember, X is just flipping these colors from white to black. So if you look down here, I'm hitting X. X is just changing my foreground background color. All right, we'll move this back up to 100. Over this area here. Looks pretty good. We're just make this area a little bit dark. This area a little bit darker. That looks pretty good. You can even darken this area and highlight this area up here. So if I wanted to add a little bit of a highlight up here, this is definitely something that I could do. Probably would zoom out a little bit. This brush bigger. This is where doing these separate areas is going to be helpful. But you can come in here and lighten stuff like that as well. Now, obviously, when we did these two right here, it's way too bright. This doesn't look good, right? And right here, it looks like we went out of those lips. So I've got this area that looks a little bit wonky down here. I don't like what I did where I tried to lighten that. So we're going to go here, make this smaller. Okay. So now we're going to lower these. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to lower this until where I start to think it looks better. And don't be surprised if I take most of this out. And I'll constantly adjust both of them until I think it looks good. So we're just going to lighten that one out. We're going to zoom out so we can see this. You can see right here, it looks a little bit unnatural and too bright. So let's go ahead and lower that some more. And this is where it looks okay here, but it looks funky up here. Why I would do them independently, because you might want to adjust one more than the other. There are ways that we can do this, but it's easier to do it this way. And we'll come back up here. We can. All right, that looks pretty good. Looks like we could clean that lip up right there just a little bit. We can do that towards the end. I can come back in and just, cool. Easy to do. All right. So we've got this, the dodge and the burn. We're going to zoom back in. I still think we could make some little lines here and some highlights. So we're going to go to the dodge. We're going to make sure we're using white and make a smaller brush. And I'm just going to come in here with 100%, 100%. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to come and make another adjustment layer. This one we're going to do really bright. We're going to come out here into this space out here and double click. That's going to bring up our layer style dialog box. What I want to do is grab the underlying layer. I'm going to hold my Alt or Option so I can split this. And you can see what we're doing is we're just changing or adjusting those highlights that we added there. So we're going to come here and just adjust this. I think it looks good. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And then we're going to invert this, Command I, because we don't want that happening everywhere. And then you're just going to paint over here again. So paint just meaning apply white. We've got 100%. Let's make this big and come in here. And you can see it's adding those highlights there. And so we just want to do that in the areas where we want the highlights. And once again, we're going to lower this way down. And we've got a little bit more shimmer there, so that looks good. Now, the last step is going to be to change the lip color if you want. Look, there's no reason to change the lip color on this, but I'll show you how you can change lip color. There's a couple different ways. What we're going to do is we're going to load that selection again. And the way we load that selection is we go to that path and we can just click on it. Click load selection. We're going to once again go up to select and mask, which is select and mask, which is over here. We're going to feather that. All right, that looks pretty good. We'll hit OK. So now we're just affecting this area. First thing you can do is simply just make a hue saturation adjustment layer. And you can come in here. You can adjust the main hue. You can adjust single color. So if you just want to change the color of the red a little bit. So if you want to make it more this color, blue, if you want to make it this color, there. Now we do have some feather and the feather looks a little bit strong. So it's doing more color out here and less up there. So if you do need to change your feather, it's really easy. Remember, you can just click on that mask and you can go back to selected mask. It's going to keep it exactly how it was. And in this case, I'm going to add some contrast to give it a little bit harder edge. Now, obviously, you're not going to do an adjustment this large. It doesn't look good. We'll bring this back. So in this case, I can just simply change the color of the lips a little bit or a lot. So in this case, remember, you can go into individual colors or your master color, and you can just sort of tweak the color of the lips to get them however you want. Or you can colorize. So we can hit colorize and we can pick a color and we can colorize those lips. And when you're doing colorize, there's all kinds of different things. Remember, you can do your saturation, lightness, darkness. You're just kind of playing around here to get whatever you want. So we'll just do something bright so you can see what's going on. So we'll do that color right there. That's colorize. Now I'm going to lower the colorize so it's not at 100%. And we're going to blend the two colors together to get this color so it looks more realistic. I'll turn this on and off. You can see how it's changing those colors. The other option, and I'll just go ahead and delete this for now, is to add a solid color. So to add a solid color, you would come down here. You can click on this little thing icon that looks like half dark, half light moon. You hit solid color. You're going to pick any color. Okay. So in this case, we'll just pick this dark red and hit OK. Doesn't look good, right? Just like we did before, we're going to hold this, make the selection. We'll come down here to select and mask. We'll feather that a little bit. We're going to hit OK. And in this case, we're going to just fill that area. It's just the quickest and easiest way to do it. So you would just go up here and you're going to go to Edit, Fill. You actually want to make this black, which isn't going to work because it's making the red out there. But then you can just come in here. Then you can hit Command D to remove your selection. And then you just invert this, Command I. It's getting you the same thing. And there, you've got that beautiful color over the lips. But yeah, that doesn't look good. So you want to change your blending mode to color. All right. And remember when I said when you do this stuff that you can make things look fake. Here is what I'm talking about, an example of fake. So just like before, we need to lower the opacity of this and still until it starts to look more realistic. So when you do a color fill, a lot of times you're doing a color fill and a hue adjustment layer. You can just drag this mask up if you'd like to duplicate it so it happens in the same area. And then you can kind of tweak what you're doing there. And that's basically it. So let's go ahead and look at the before and after. So this is what we did to them. It's a little bit intense in the color. We could lower that a little bit if we wanted. That's not a big deal. So this is before and this is after. Before, after. And you can see right here, there's some highlights and stuff where they got a little bit bright. The cool thing is, remember, all this is non-destructive. So I can come in here and edit that. So right now we know that we've got the dodge, which was where we were dodging and burning. If I wanted to remove some of that, all I need to do is go into the dodge layer and I'm going to go ahead and grab my black because black is hiding. I'm going to lower the flow so I don't totally take it out, but then I can just kind of come in here and clean some of those areas up where I think it got too bright, where it doesn't look good. Well, that's it for retouching lips. Hey, don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you found this video helpful. Also, we do have a Facebook page. The Facebook page, and I really needed it today because somebody asked me a question and I cannot answer it. And the reason I cannot answer it is because I can't see what they're doing. So the Facebook page is helpful if you have a comment and you put it here in the comments in YouTube and I can't answer the question because I say I need to see it. Well, there's no way for you to post an image. If you go to the Facebook page, you can post an image or a video. I can see what the issue is and usually I can answer and fix the problem right away. Otherwise, you can leave your comments and questions below and don't forget to subscribe.